Alright, I'm out in the garage doing some work on the T5 transmission for the 1984 and a half Mustang GT350. We're getting ready to start installing the clutch. I got everything cleaned up underneath the car. But I wanted to do a little video on the T5 transmission to clarify a few things for somebody that might be having issues trying to figure out which T5 they have, and also another biggie is what kind of fluid to use in which one, because there's a world class and there's a non-world class. The T5 was used in the Mustang, I want to say from like 1983, I think, to like 1998 in the V8 Mustangs. So I got to go ahead and get this cleaned up a little bit so we can read the tags, and then I'll go through and explain how you identify whether it's a world class or a non-world class. Alright, so I got the transmission cleaned up a bit. It's not perfect by any means, but it's certainly a lot better than it was before. This is what it looked like before and after. Alright, so now that we got this cleaned up, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about how you can identify a world-class transmission and a non-world class. I'm going to be basically talking about the Fox body Mustangs as far as the T5 transmission goes. I'm not going to be talking about GMs or anything like that. This is strictly for the Fox body 5.0s because that's where most of my knowledge is. So first things first, on one of the bolts you're going to find a tag. I'll get a better look at that in a second so you can actually see the number that's on that. But you're going to be able to take this number, and I have some charts that I pulled offline, and you can basically look at that chart, go by this number. It's going to tell you exactly what year it is and what car it came off of, or was built for rather. I know my car to be all original, so I know this is an 84. Right on top here, if you look at this starburst, it's got an 84 in the center, so that means this was built in 84. If it was 85, obviously it'd be 85, etc., etc. So that basically tells you what year, and we know that the world class T5 started to be built in 85, and I'm not quite sure if it was every 85. I don't know if it was some of the early 85s might have still been non-world class. That I'm not 100% sure on, but I know 85 is when they started making the world class. So that basically means this being an 84, that right there is pretty much going to tell you that this is a non-world class. You can verify that with the tag, like I said. I'll show you how to do that in a second. Another way, if you look at this side of the transmission, this guy right here, I'm trying to think of how I want to explain this. This lip right here, I'll call it, you can see is kind of raised. That right there shows that this is a non-world class. A world class will have a little bit wider lip, and it'll be flatter, and it'll also have some stuff stamped into it. And that's a dead giveaway that this is a non-world class. Alright, so there's a better look at that tag. The main number that you really want to look at is the bottom number. And I don't know how well that's coming out on camera, but it's 13-52-065. And the number that you really need to concentrate on is the last two digits, which is 65. And you can go online. A couple different websites have the tag numbers. So basically, you want to go ahead and find your number. This particular chart here, again, just shows the last two digits. Some of the charts show the whole number. But again, it's the last two digits that you're concerned about, and ours was 65. So that's basically telling us it's a Ford 1984 Mustang 5-liter V8. I had a different chart that actually, this one's not as good as the other chart. This one might be it here. This actually tells you it was a 1984 Mustang or the Capri. So that's a sure way to verify that this is a 1984. And one other way to tell if this is a world class or non-world class, if you were to open the tranny up and look inside of here, which I'm not going to do, I don't want to break the seals and have to re-RTV it or anything like that, trying to keep the work down to a minimum. But if you were to look inside of here, and I have some pictures I can show you, the non-world class, they use brass parts. Not all brass parts, obviously, but the synchros were brass. So if you open this up and it was clean in there, you would be able to see the brass synchros, which would look like this. And then in 85, when they went to the world class, they no longer use brass, and they started using what they call a fiber synchro. So to sum it all up, basically, if you have a pre-1985, you have a non-world class. If you have an 85 or newer, it's going to be a world class. And they made these for the V8 Mustangs, I believe. I think I said in an earlier part of the video, I think up to like 1998. And I think they continued to use it with the V6 for a while after that. So, as the years went on, they improved on the transmission. I want to say like in 1990, the gears, I think the ratio changed a little bit, and the gears were made a little bit stronger. They're made with stronger metal. I think they added nickel to them or something like that. So the later year the T5 is out of a Fox body Mustang, it's going to be better. And then I think in 93, of course, when the Cobra came out, they even made it a little bit better and stronger for the 93 Cobra. And I want to say that one was good up to like 330 foot-pounds of torque. Where the original ones I want to say were like 265, and the later ones, like the 1990, I think were good for like 300. But don't quote me on those numbers. Some of that's from memory, and some of that's from some of the recent research that I did to refresh myself. If you watch one of my earlier videos when I revealed the 84 Mustang, that's undercover there. It's been off the road for 10 years, so I really haven't been dealing with Fox bodies for that whole 10 years, so the memory starts to go a little bit. So, but that's pretty much in a nutshell as far as how to identify a world class or non-world class. And I'm going to also now talk a little bit about the what kind of oil to use, whether it's world class or non-world class, which type of transmission fluid you're going to use. All right, so I'm going to dive into talking about what kind of fluid to use in a T5. And I want to start off by saying this is a very well debated subject. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when we were into these Fox bodies, back then you would go on to forums, and that's where you can ask questions and share information and that kind of thing. I know a lot of people use YouTube now, but and I know the forums are still going out there, but definitely I could tell you this is very, very well debated. Some people say gear oil in the non-world class. Some people say ATF. Now the new thing is the Synchromesh fluid, which is really a GM product per se. So you'll get one person saying one thing and the other person saying the complete opposite. And it's just, like I said, very well debated. But the best way to figure out what to put in your, let's talk about the non-world class. The main thing is go to your manual. Which I still have. I got the original manual for this, so I'm going to go through that and show you that. And another common sense way is to, when you drain your fluid out of it, you drain your old fluid. If it's gear oil, it was gear oil. If it was automatic transmission fluid, it was automatic transmission fluid. That doesn't mean that it couldn't originally came with gear oil and somebody decided that they're going to use the ATF instead. I mean, that's certainly debatable, but your manual is pretty much going to be your best source. Be careful with the aftermarket repair manuals, for Fox body Mustangs and stuff. Usually when you find those or you use those, they'll say right on it from 79 to 93. So sometimes the information is vague. So here's our manual, and I'm open to page 133, 132, and 133. And this is our lubricant specifications. Basically shows every kind of fluid for the whole car, rear end, engine oil, that kind of thing. So we want to find transmission. Here's the automatic transmission. They show the manual transmission 4-speed. I know in 84 the V8s were all 5 speeds, so that 4-speed might have been for the V6. or prior to 83. I think 1982, I think, was the last year of the 4-speed. But anyhow, this is us here, 5-speed T5. That's the Ford part number, and it's basically Motorcraft Dextron 2, which is automatic transmission fluid. And I don't believe they make the Dextron 2 anymore. In fact, I don't think they made that in a while. I think they're up to like Dextron 4 or 5 or something like that. But yeah, so this takes automatic transmission fluid, ATF, and some people might be like, again, you go on these forums, some people are like, oh, no way, you got to put gear oil in there. A lot of that stems from the real old school guys. I consider myself old school, but the real old school guys from the the 60s and 70s, the old 4-speeds, they were all gear oil. So that's where that stems from. And as you can see, the 4-speed in there was still showing, I believe that was gear oil that they were recommending. So they recommend ATF for this. When I drained this, it was ATF. So I'm comfortable with that. Now, to make matters worse, for lack of a better term, some people may cringe at this, and I may get some comments on this, but the new thing now for these T5s, people are using the Synchromesh. And I read a lot about it, and I kind of like what I'm hearing, and I think I'm going to give it a try. You definitely wouldn't want to put gear oil in this. Here's the thing. At the end of the day, if you put gear oil in here, automatic transmission fluid in here, or Synchromesh, none of them are going to blow your transmission to pieces. The wrong stuff will do damage over time, for sure. So I'm not saying put whatever oil you want into your transmission. Definitely not. If you want to play it on the safe side, go to your manual. That's from the manufacturer. You're not going to get any better than that. But the Synchromesh is really a GM product. Originally, it was a GM product. I guess it still is technically. But that's somewhere in between gear oil and automatic transmission fluid from the research that I've done. And a lot of guys say that they use it in their T5s, whether it's world class or non-world class, and they love the way it shifts. Now, I don't remember ever really having any problems shifting with the ATF that was in here, when I was driving the car. But if you watch my other video, it's basically about the car and how it sat for 10 years, and I did a bunch of modifications, and the reason it sat was because the clutch went. Because of all the extra horsepower. Everything in the car was original when I got it. So with the new mods, I didn't really drive it for very long. I drove it for a bit, but the clutch went, and then a bunch of other stuff was going on in my life. So car sat for 10 years, and now I'm trying to get it back up and running. So the point of all that is it sat for a long time, and I do remember that it shifted pretty good. I don't really remember missing too many gears. Even after the modifications, but it was 10 years ago. So I'm going to try the Synchromesh, and if I don't like it, I don't feel it's shifting right or whatever, I can always go back to the ATF. So that's the oil I'm going to use. It's the Pennzoil brand Synchromesh. There's a few different brands out there. You can get into the synthetics. The Royal Purple, I guess, is the most, I'll say the most expensive because it is, but it's supposed to be pretty good. I think Amsoil makes one, and there's a few other ones out there. Redline maybe, but anyhow, they're expensive. Most of those I think are synthetics that I mentioned. Don't quote me on that. Do your research. The Pennzoil, from what I researched, is good old-fashioned dinosaur oil, for lack of a better term. So it's regular oil. So, and it's a lot cheaper. This was about $9 a quart, and this is going to take just under 3 quarts. I think like 2.8 quarts. So I'm trying to do this on a budget, getting this thing back up and running. So I don't want to dump in $70 worth of Royal Purple and find out that I don't like it, especially with the synthetic. That's a whole other discussion. You get on some of those forums and you start talking about synthetic oils, whether it be motor oil or transmission oil. Again, you're going to get one opinion on this end and the complete opposite on the other. You're going to get the guy that says synthetics are the best thing since scrambled eggs, and you're going to get the other guys that say if you put a synthetic in your transmission, you're going to start having problems because it's too slick, and there's a lot of opinions out there. But at the end of the day, whatever you decide to use, Drive it for a while, and if it's shifting good for you and you're not hearing any funny noises and that kind of thing, I say go with it. One of the big things to keep in mind, though, please don't take me wrong. I'm not saying put, again, any kind of oil that you want into your transmission. You can cause damage. The world-class transmissions, from what I understand, if you were to put gear oil in a world-class transmission, you would definitely have some problems because of those fiber synchros. So definitely do your research. Don't go by me. This is my opinion kind of thing, and this is something I decided to try. But definitely, from what I understand, do not put gear oil into a world-class transmission, because I guess that will start to break down the fiber and that kind of things. So anyhow, that's pretty much it for this video. Again, just wanted to give a little heads up on how to identify what transmission you have. If you bought one on eBay or if you got one off Craigslist, that kind of thing. Pull that chart offline and definitely check the tag. Check your, I'm calling it a sunburst. And, so if you've got a guy telling you he's got a T5 out of a 1990, which is definitely one of the better ones, it's got harder steel gears and that kind of thing. It's real simple. If he's got it out in his garage, when you go look at it, look at that guy there, and definitely look at that there so you can tell if it's a world class or a non-world class. So that's pretty much it. I hope that clears up some of the mystery on the what oil to use and what's the difference between the world class and non-world class. Hopefully it helped, and watch out for the next video coming out.